Hello and welcome back to Solent Sports News with me, Harry McBain. I am now joined by sports broadcaster Will Cope. Will, thank you for joining us in the studio. How are you?
Pleasure, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. And you must be happy, Sheffield United winning on the weekend in Derby?
Absolutely delighted. Joint top of the table, home victory against our local rivals, another clean sheet, only conceded 2 at home all season, and that was in the same game early on in the season. Fortress Bramall Lane, I was up there actually, it was absolutely jumping. Great day to be there.
And in your role as a broadcaster, what's it like?
Yeah.
Is it hard to separate yourself from the role of a fan to that of being a professional when you're commentating?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's one of those first obstacles that you need to get over as a broadcaster, because we all come into broadcasting as sports fans. We wouldn't be doing it if we weren't. And sometimes you do need to temper that. I think actually for me it was quite easy because I started broadcasting at a time when I was following a team that, whilst I had some interest in, I wasn't a fan of them necessarily. So I could be a little bit more objective. I could turn it on when I needed to, but also pull back and see the bigger picture. But, you know, it's not the done thing to jump up and down in the press box when the team that you support score, if you happen to be covering that team. So, yeah, it is a balancing act. But you have to remember that you are, you know, you're not a fan with a laptop or fan with a broadcasting mic or what have you. You are there to do a job, to be objective, other than, of course, if you are a broadcaster for a club media, for example, and then it's all talking about us and we and this sort of thing. But if you're working for Sky or ITV or ESPN or the BBC or what have you, having that objectivity, being able to pull back and look at the bigger picture is really important.
And kind of looking back to when you first started out and your first few experiences behind the mic, what were you like in terms of nerves? Was it something that you were immediately comfortable with?
Yes, I've always been quite confident and comfortable talking, so that's never been a problem. Funnily enough, I was reflecting on this the other day with some students in our 3rd year doing a sports commentary module. And I was talking to them about my first time as a commentator, which was basically my first time professionally broadcasting. I'd done some college radio before and some community radio, but I'd never, you know, done professional broadcasting until this point. And I remember doing a pre-season friendly a couple of weeks before the season started, and a goal was scored. Okay, it was a good goal, but I lost it. I was like, oh my word, you know, an amazing goal, all this sort of stuff. And I lost it so much that actually the broadcast levels peaked out and the broadcast dropped temporarily. And then afterwards, I thought to myself, okay, it's not great that it dropped out. But actually reflecting on it over the course of 25 years, because I've been doing it 25 years, I realised that there's a time and a place. And a pre-season friendly, 2 weeks before the season starts, isn't really the time to be losing it. The time to be losing it is if you score a goal that wins a cup final or gets you promotion or means you avoid relegation or something like that. So there's a time and a place. You've got to dial it down on occasions. But I always found it, you know, fairly straightforward, fairly comfortable. As I say, I've always liked talking, and being able to talk about sport. Yeah. You know, it's an absolute dream.
If you could pick out in like a few keywords, skills that you think you would need for maybe someone aspiring to get into the industry?
You've got to be hardworking, you've got to be dedicated, you've got to be, really importantly, you've got to be self-reflective, you've got to be critical, analytical of your own stuff, because very rarely will someone sit you down and say, okay, let's take you through that commentary, or let's take you through that two-way, or let's take you through this. You've got to analyse your own work. That doesn't necessarily mean you've got to be super critical of yourself. Oh, you know, that was all rubbish, there was nothing good in that. Not about that. But certainly early on, in the first year or two of you as a broadcaster, look back at your stuff, reflect on what you're doing, listen to what you're saying. Am I saying things that are almost like audible tics that I keep saying but I didn't realise I kept saying? Are there turns of phrase that I keep using that I can possibly change it and do it in a different way? Is there a different variety to my delivery? Is there a tone of my voice that I can change? How can I mix things up a little bit? I don't want to look like a one-trick pony. So it's really important to have that variation, and that comes from self-reflection and self-analysis. So yeah, hard work, dedication, but also be critical Not super critical, but be critical of your own work.
Brilliant, thank you, Will. Now, time for a short break. I'll be back with more sporting news in just a few minutes. See you soon. Coming out of this international break, Saints are returning here to St Mary's, where they will face fellow relegation rivals Leicester City. Before the break, Saints lost to Arsenal at the Emirates, and Russell Martin said that their season would not be defined by that result. But things need to change for Southampton after their worst start to a Premier League season in their history, sitting on just 1 point after 7 games. This is an important tie, but can the Saints go marching on?
Well, to our football correspondent Harry McBain at the City Ground now. It's no secret that Nottingham Forest fans and the Premier League haven't got on recently, Harry. What's been happening?
Thanks, John. Yes, you're right. They're not exactly the best of friends at the moment, and that's evident when you go to any game at the City Ground this season. They boo the Premier League national anthem, the Premier League anthem before games. And the trigger kind of behind this, you could look at a few more recent causes. You could have looked at the 3-game ban for manager Nuno Espirito Santo. That was a reaction to a red card given to Morgan Gibbs-White. That's a red card that was overturned by an independent panel, but the Premier League withheld the ban, something that frustrated Forest fans. And if you look even wider than that, owner Evangelos Marinakis received a 5-game stadium ban for allegedly spitting at a match official, something he denies. So they're not on the greatest of terms at the moment.
And on owner Evangelos Marinakis, Harry, it isn't the first time he's got into trouble, is it?
No, John, he's not a stranger to controversy. He's always in the headlines. He's been talked about quite a lot in the media. He was shown pitch-side last season at Forest at the full-time whistle to confront match officials. This controversy around whether he did spit at a match official or not. But this goes even further back to his time in Greece, where he also owns Olympiakos. There's a lot more behind the scenes to him, and he was, of course, behind that infamous tweet after their loss at Everton, which saw some targeted comments towards match officials.
OK, so let's ignore the off-the-field drama just for a bit now. And Forest have really been on fire on the pitch this season, haven't they?
Yes, Forest have been exceeding expectations on the pitch this year, and they are really exciting fans at the moment. They secured their first win in 55 years at Anfield, and now sitting 7th in the Premier League, Forest are really showing that there are no limits to their season. Forest fans, though, are wary that they don't want to get too overexcited. They don't want to go on a European charge. They want to be going for the Premier League title. But I think this season, surviving in the Premier League would really be their main goal. Thanks,
Harry McBain at the City Ground, as ever, thank you.